What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Postgame Podcast. I'm here with Cory Smith, here to discuss some NC State men's basketball. NC State, well, we can talk some women's basketball too if people want to steer the conversation there, but we'll talk NC State men's basketball to start things off. The Wolfpack, needed a win against Pitt. Didn't really matter how you got it. It wasn't pretty at first, but they end up finding a way. 81-72 was the final. NC State able to close things out with a strong second half, outscoring Pitt 47-39. And really, it wasn't that close down the stretch. NC State hitting a couple big shots early on in the second, or late actually in the second half, about the 6-minute mark from Paul McNeil. After that point, NC State had full control. Pitt was able to get it a couple times, a little bit tighter, close, one possession game, stuff like that. But NC State never falls out of control, ends up winning at 81-72. We'll talk about just about anything anybody wants to kind of chime in here. I wanted to kind of highlight some bigger moments for NC State. But before we get things started, I want to remind our listeners and viewers, visit our iTunes, Google Play Store, Spotify, anywhere that you get the podcast. Give us a rating. Let people know that you enjoy the podcast. Also subscribe, download the podcast so that you can listen to them anywhere. And if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure to hit like, subscribe, hit get notifications. That way you can jump on with us each and every single time we do these. Normally I would be doing them with somebody else, but Miles is currently trying to get stuff squared away for this ice storm, some last minute stuff going on there. And then Brian was at the Duke game today. And then Charlie texted me and he's feeling sick. So I was like, let's just do it live. We'll do it. I'll do it. I'll talk about the game. We'll break it down for anybody. If you have questions you want answered or you want to give your thoughts on it, you can chime in as well. But let's start. First of all, NC State starts the game really struggling. I think it was 4 of 15 or 4 of 16 that Pitt actually started shooting. NC State only like 1 of 7 at that point. They couldn't get a shot off because Pitt able to over and over and over again dominate NC State on the offensive boards. I think early on, I believe it was like a 16-4 rebounding margin that Pitt had before NC State really started getting things going. One of the big factors there, obviously, they talked about it throughout the game, but Rowan Ciulepa for Pittsburgh, just dominant on the boards, especially on the offensive end of the floor. I had him and Cameron Corrin finishing with a combined 15 offensive rebounds. NC State as a team, want to make sure I get that stat right, but NC State as a team ends up finishing with, 8 offensive rebounds. So again, when you're missing as many shots as Pitt did in this game, and Pitt shot, 36% overall, NC State shot north of 47% in this one. So there's not as many offensive rebounding opportunities for NC State, but still, when you lose a rebounding battle 52-31, there's going to be a lot of things that you have to do right to be able to win that game, regardless of who the opponent is. The fortunate part for NC State is they did a lot of those other things right. They shot the free throw really well, 22 of 27 overall from the free throw line, while Pitt shot 11 of 25. So Pitt gets nearly as many opportunities as NC State, but shot exactly half, or made exactly half of the amount that NC State did. They shot 44% from the free throw line. NC State, again, didn't take a ton of threes, but 7 of 20 on those threes. You'll take that every single day of the week. And we mentioned Paul McNeil and the effort that he had. 4 3-pointers for him in the second half was a huge effort for him. 4 of 7, I believe, is what I had him at in the second half. So, again, a big number for him. He ends up with 15 points. And, Quadir Copeland, like the effort that you got from him, and I'll talk about a little bit more here in just a second, but like Quadir Copeland, especially in the second half, Darrion Williams getting into foul trouble. You didn't know what you're going to get from him in the second half. Really didn't get much. It was a quick stretch there where he drew an and one foul, got it to fall, and then on the very next possession hit another bucket to get him to 6 out of his 7 points they ended up with in this game. But again, like you're not getting, if you're not getting a ton from him, other guys around him have to step up. And Quadir Copeland, not only from a scoring standpoint, but also from a usage standpoint, a really big effort from him today. I want to point out, Alec Lauer pointed out, the State was down 56-51. Copeland scored or assisted on 16 of the next 18 points to make it 69-61. So, just the fact that he continues to, if you're asking him to kind of take over a game, it might not always be pretty, but the effort that you got from him today was massive. And I think, again, what you're seeing from him was a really big, a really big day for him, but also was absolutely needed when Darrion wasn't on his game, wasn't, it did feel like, I will say this, like Darrion Caldwell, or Darrion Caldwell. I keep wanting to go back to that. Darrion Williams in this game. Darrion Caldwell, by the way, former wrestler for NC State a long time ago. I don't know why that keeps coming up in my head. But Darrion Williams, again, the effort that you got from him today, it just seemed like he was out of flow. Didn't really get in the flow of the game because of foul trouble early on. He ends up coming out 2 early fouls. Plays a little bit more late in the first half, comes back in the second half, another 2 early fouls. He only ends up playing 25 minutes. But it did seem like every time he's on the floor, it's like, all right, we're going to try to force him to do something here. Ends up with 2 assists, no turnovers in this game, or at least let me make sure I got that stat correct. I believe he ends up with 2. Let's see. Hold on. I want to make sure I get that straight. Yeah, I think it was, he ends up with 2 assists to 1 turnover. Again, not a great night from him. And again, we'll be honest here. Like, if he's not having a good game, you've got to have other people step up. And that's exactly what several other guys did. He finished with a -1, the only NC State player on the court with a -1. Blake saying Kirby was about to lose his mind in the car listening to the game. Go Pack. Yeah. I'm sure if you're listening to this game, especially early in the second half, where NC State just didn't seem like they could really get into the flow, didn't seem like they could get back in this game. And then late in the second half, it was like, all right, we're all over it again. NC State's getting going again. And again, what you got from Quadir Copeland, what you got from, I keep mentioning about Paul McNeil, and then Ven-Allen Lubin too, like what he did on the boards to kind of, help NC State where they were really struggling on the boards in this game. Again, it's just that to me is one area where, you really need your bigs to step up. Moussa Sanye in this game, ends up with 4 fouls, only plays 11 minutes. You're going to get those games from him every once in a while. It wasn't somebody they need to lean on, but it's still like, if you could get him in the game and get him productive on the offensive or defensive boards to help NC State, that would have been massive. But it just felt like defensive effort from him today was good. The offensive effort, you didn't get hardly anything. I wanted to point this out too. Pat said Tre got absolutely abused the first 5 minutes and turned it over twice. The sidelines in the backcourt. We never had a chance to get off to a good start. Yeah, I will say this. Again, Tre, I keep saying it, and I've said it the last couple podcasts, like I feel like Tre Holloman, and this is not a shot at him. This is just a shot at other guys having better efforts than him recently. But it just, to me, continues to feel like, guys like Matt Abel or Terrence Arsenault might be the better option there as starters. They give you more length. They give you better shooting at times than what you're getting from Tre Holloman. Tre Holloman today, 2 of 5, 2 of 4 from behind the arc. So not a bad effort, but it just hasn't been there recently. And then you get, again, 4 of 6 from him at the free throw line. NC State as a team shot well from the free throw line, but it just continues to feel like there are other guys that should be getting those opportunities to start. And Tre Holloman has done a good job this year when he's come off the bench. So that to me is the one question mark moving forward, is like, all right, at what point do you start using one of these guys as a starter and giving Tre Holloman an opportunity out the bench? And then Patrick pointing out rebounding seems concerning at times, especially how many offensive rebounds Pitt got today. Yeah. I mentioned 2 guys got 15 offensive rebounds for Pitt alone, and NC State finishes with 8. And granted, one's a former rugby player, one's 6'10", so they've got the size down low. The one guy for them, the Australian player, ends up with, Siolipa finishes with 8 offensive rebounds, 5 defensive rebounds. He's 6'6". Again, it's not always about size, it's just about effort. And I feel like NC State on the boards, the effort was not there, especially early. I didn't feel like it was terrible late in the game, and that's another big reason. Again, when you're shooting as well as NC State was, that certainly helps too. And then Gary said, Why do you think Arsenault didn't play more in this game? Second game in a row under 20 minutes. Yeah, I mean, I know Gary asked, I believe Gary asked Wade about this the other night at the show. Yeah, I mean, I want to make sure I get the numbers correct here for him too. I mean, he only played 17 minutes, so just under 20 minutes. When you're getting the offensive numbers that you were from Matt Abel in this game, and you don't necessarily need it defensively, you need a guy that's scoring to be able to get you back into it. And Arsenault only took 2 shots in this game. You're getting a little bit more out of Matt Abel at times. You go with the hotter hand. I want to, let's see, Terrence Arsenault played, 7 minutes in the first half. Matt Abel played 11. And then they both basically split the second half, 13 for Abel, 10 for Arsenault. But again, you're just getting more offense from Matt Abel. So in a game where you need to come back, I mean, I feel like you go with the more offensively hot hand there for NC State if you're going to bring somebody off the bench. But again, and you need defensive rebounding. So, to try to dispel some of these offensive rebounds from them, you put out Moussa Sanye and he ends up with 4 early fouls. So again, you've got to, those things have got to be figured out. All right, let's see. Blake did ask, he said, what are your thoughts on Breed and seeing the floor the last couple of games, matchups? Yeah, I mean, I think some of it's matchups, some of it's also, look, not to say that he is injured, and obviously Will Wade talked about it. He said that he's not injured. He said he could have gotten in the game. We didn't get a chance to talk to him post-game in this one, but, he didn't play against Clemson, and Wade said he felt like he probably could have put him in at some point. But he was, again, same thing I was just saying about, Arsenault not getting a ton of minutes. You put Matt Abel out there, and he plays well. Well, when your starters, all of them outside of Tre Holloman, get 30-plus minutes, Darrion Williams, comes out. You're trying to put size out there instead of putting, shooters, and you put Darrion Williams on the bench. You put Moussa Sanye out there to try to get some rebounds. Well, somebody's not going to get out there, and I think Allen Breed just, again, some of this could be too, just trying to make sure he's healthy down the stretch as well. I mean, you guys remember he did deal with a pretty serious injury in the offseason. He was able to come back. They didn't know how much they were going to get out of him. You put him starting in several games, and maybe he can come back and be kind of a stabilizing force at times for NC State. But when you have, guys like Darrion Williams, you have guys like Tre Holloman now back. You have, obviously, Quadir Copeland handling the ball for the most part. You got 3 ball handlers out there, 3 guys that are playmakers with the ball in their hands. So you don't have a ton of room for Allen Breed potentially. We'll see. And as Austin pointed out, why no Scotty Ebube when you're struggling to rebound? Yeah, I mean, again, I keep going back to it. I don't like, and this is, again, nothing against Scotty Ebube, but I think he's more of just kind of a size piece down low to keep teams from going inside, and more of a physical presence than really a rebounder. He's not a great rebounder for NC State. And hasn't really done it throughout his career. So I don't know that that's necessarily the case here. I think it's just, again, it's an effort thing for other guys across the board. But Scotty Ebube, I wouldn't be surprised to see him eventually start getting some minutes back, but I don't think it's ever going to be more than, 6 to 8 minutes in a game. And that would be even a stretch given, just the getting up and down the court limitations that he has, and NC State needing to move the ball fast. Another thing I wanted to point out in this game too, by the way, speaking of moving fast, NC State using their defense to get back to their offense again. Not a ton of turnovers in this game, but they forced 14. That leads to 22 points off of turnovers for NC State. Whether it was, hitting a 3 or getting a drive to the basket or drawing a foul a couple times, NC State was able to outscore them 22-3 in points off of turnovers. Again, you're using your defense to force, to get into offense. And I think, to me, it's another big reason why NC State was able to win this game. Let's see. Papa asked, what's up with Breed? No Scotty. Moussa is soft. I don't know. I don't think Moussa is very soft. I think he's actually too physical at times and ends up, getting himself into foul trouble. So he's trying not to draw fouls and ends up looking soft. But I think he does have, physical nature to him. And I think he is able to rebound the ball better than what he's shown. I think some of it is just him getting into the flow of the game. Same thing I said about Darrion Williams. Like, I don't think Darrion Williams has really got into the flow at all in this game. And we've seen him several times this season where he hasn't gotten into the flow early, figures it out in the second half, and ends up, leading NC State in certain categories. So again, just, based off the eye test, what we've seen a couple times, yeah, he should definitely be able to kind of have a bigger role at times if Musa is able to be a little bit better when it comes to, not drawing fouls and being able to do the thing that you're supposed to do. And that's getting offensive and defensive rebounds, putting it back, and then getting back down on the court and doing the other things there. Gary said Terrence Arsenault hands down should get a starting spot back. Yeah. I mean, again, I think I think I would be happy either way here. If you go, all right, we need more size in the lineup, and we want, we feel like we have enough offense with, the other guys that, I mean, look, Paul McNeil, 15 points for you today. Tre Holloman, 10 points coming off the bench. Quadir Copeland, 20 points today. Ven-Allen Lubin, 17 points for you today. Like, you've got enough offense there between all those guys. If you put a Terrence Arsenault out there and he doesn't give you a ton of offense, but he gives you great defense to start, forces a couple turnovers, or, like today's game, ends up going 1 of 2, only takes 2 shots, but like his usage rate, let's see, Terrence Arsenault's usage rate is 8%. Was 8% in this game. The only guy who had a lower usage rate than him was Moussa Sagne. So, like, he's not asking for the ball a ton. It's very similar to what you had from Allen Breed once he was put into the lineup. So I wouldn't be upset with either one of them. To me, it feels like either Matt Abel or Terrence Arsenault needs to be the guy inserted into the starting lineup. Tre Holloman, as he continues to work his way back, I think it needs to be on a per game basis. I think the other 4 starters there for you. Yes, I know a bunch of people are going to say, hey, obviously, Darrion Williams has had some game where he struggled, but I just feel like he's still earned his keep there. He's still one of the highest usage rate players in the ACC and for NC State. The usage rate for him today was still 23%. So, just above or just below kind of that mark that we've talked about, 24% usage rate for him is where NC State has been in winning situations. But Quadir Copeland really stepped up and was that guy later in the season or later in this game. Let's see. Trying to go through here a couple other things. So let's see. Yeah, Pat was saying keeping lineups to 2 ball handlers gives Matt, Musa, and Terrence Arsenault more opportunities. Their play since UVA has been incredibly efficient. Yeah, I mean, look, Terrence Arsenault isn't taking a ton of shots. It kind of goes back to the point that I just made where, once the ball gets in his hand, it's most of the time still moving. Like, if he gets a rebound, he's kicking it out to somebody else. If he gets a pass to him out on the wing, he's looking for somebody that may be open or driving and kicking. So you're not seeing a ton from him as far as offensive output, but what he's doing when he's shooting throughout the season and the last several games, I believe he's 7 of 10 shooting over the last several games from 3-point range. And then, today hit the 1 shot from inside, 2 points, but again, 50% shooting from him. Like, you'll take that every day of the week as long as you're getting great defense from him. And he forces a steal in today's game. Moussa Sagne forced 3 steals in his 11 minutes. So, like, if you're getting guys off the bench that aren't being, great offensive pieces for you, because I felt like Matt Abel was extremely efficient today, in his effort, 4 of 7 overall, from inside the arc, struggled a little bit from outside, but you've got those guys that can give you some punch off the bench. Him and Tre Holloman, who I feel like, Tre should be coming off the bench. We'll see ultimately what ends up happening here, but like, those guys give you so much effort off the bench offensively that if Terrence Arsenault, Moussa Sagne are great defensive players too, that certainly helps as well. Let's see. Let me scroll through here and see some other questions. Yeah. So let's see. So somebody said, Seats here says, so do we try to dump the whole roster at the end of the season and start over again next year? Who do we try to keep? I don't know that I would go that far. I mean, I think Matt Abel has been, I'm sorry, my nose is itching really bad. I don't know why I keep doing that. But Matt Abel's been really good. Paul McNeil doesn't go to the NBA. If he doesn't go, then I'd love to see NC State keep him. Terrence Arsenault has a whole nother year. Moussa Sagne has a whole nother year. Like, all these guys that I'm talking about that are efficient parts of this team, maybe not your stars, but those guys are a great starting point for what you could have going into next year. We'll see ultimately what the NBA stock is for Paul McNeil or Matt Abel by the end of the season. But like, those 2 guys, man, I'd love to keep both of them. And there's a chance Allen Breed could have another year too, based off of The fact that he had a COVID year, he had to sit a year out due to stuff that happened off the court that he ended up getting cleared up of, by the way, and then a full injury season last year too. So he might have another season next year if he pushes for that. So he could be another guy that could be a contributor for NC State next year. So that's already 5 players right there that NC State could keep for next season. There's a couple others too. Mikey Wilkins that's taking a redshirt year this year. Colton Langdon is taking a redshirt year this year. Or actually, Colton is not taking a redshirt year this year. But you've got a couple others that could be guys that, if you continue to develop them, could be players next year. That's already a base of 5 guys, 6, 7 maybe. And then you add to that with some bona fide stars, and you have a guy in Cole Clora coming in, and you had Trayvon Carter-Givens coming in. So there are some great pieces there for NC State to be able to build around for next year. So, Gary said, I wonder how long it's been since the team was out-rebounded by 21 and still won. Not only won, but won on the road and nearly by double digits in this game. If NC State hits some more free throws down the stretch to be able to win it. 30, if you're going by quarters, like the last 10 minutes, NC State outscored them 32-20. That's a pretty big margin for a game where NC State was struggling early on in the first half to really get going. So that's really all you needed there by the end of this one for NC State. I also want to point out too, I didn't talk about him enough, but Ven-Allen Lubin in this game was extremely impressive. 32 minutes. His usage rate was 22%. So getting the ball in his hands, looking at Ken Palm, he had him with an offensive rating of 143, which is the highest of any player on the court for either team today. And that's just his offensive rating. The fact that he ends up adding, I mentioned earlier, 12 rebounds, finishes with 1 block, 1 steal. So 2 stocks in this game. And, the other number 2 that stands out, and we don't talk about it enough, is the fact that he's been able to limit his fouls. This is a big man playing down low against a lot of bigs that are typically taller than him. A lot of bigs that he has to be physical with, that he's trying to body with down low, and he's just not drawing a ton of fouls. He's not drawing a ton of fouls. He's not ending up with a ton of fouls. So, he plays 32 minutes in today's game. Darrion Williams, ends up fouling out. Or Quadir Copeland ends up fouling out. Darrion Williams ends up with 4 fouls that limits him. You have to put in Moussa Sanye, who ends up with 4 fouls in this game. There were foul troubles all over the court today, and Ven-Allen Lubin just continues to be smart about the way that he plays down low, but still physical enough to come away with his 5th double-double of the season. I've been critical of him at times, that he has to be a better rebounder at times for NC State. I've said the same exact thing about Darrion Williams. I feel like both of them have to be better rebounders for you at times, and they haven't always been that way. But in a game where you knew he was going to have to kind of take over, he was great in this game and really gave you an awesome effort on both ends of the floor. Defensively, maybe not huge numbers, but the 4 offensive rebounds were half of what NC State ended up with. He also had, I believe, his 12 overall rebounds compared to 31 for NC State was 39% of the entire boards for NC State today. So there's got to be more effort from other people around him. And, it's something that Will Wade's talked about all year long. Ven-Allen Lubin has just been a rock for us over and over and over again. And he's just been somebody that has, just continued to produce for NC State. But there do need to be some other guys that step up around him, some other guys that become better rebounders, some other guys that are able to score. Again, love what you saw from Matt Abel today, kind of off the catch. Obviously, you'd like to see him shoot a little bit better from behind the arc, but if you're getting the effort that you do from Paul McNeil, if you get some other guys that are shooting from outside, once Matt Abel gets the ball in his hands, he's been a good enough passer for NC State this season. He's been a good enough driver for NC State this season that he can be a productive part of that element too. Now what you really need is somebody to step up from a rebounding standpoint, because this is only the 4th game this season that NC State has won where it's been out-rebounded. All 6 of its losses have been when it's been out-rebounded. So the fact that you get out-rebounded by 21 and still find a way to win this convincingly is huge. But it's also, kind of it kind of says more about Pittsburgh to me than it does about NC State, because Pittsburgh, got every opportunity. They shoot 29 free throws. If they make, the same amount as NC State, NC State finished, let's see, NC State from the free throw line I mentioned earlier, 22 of 27. If they make 22 of their 29, if Pittsburgh does, then we're talking about Pittsburgh winning this game and NC State, coming away with a frustrating loss. If Pittsburgh, I don't know, shoots better from outside, which they shot 11 of 29 in this game, then we're talking about Pittsburgh, potentially being in there. Yeah, and as Harrison pointed out, NC State didn't win this game as much as Pitt lost it. But I will push back on that a little bit. Hey man, I mean, NC State had to win this game down the stretch. Your backs are against the wall, and you come away with the type of effort they did late. There's a reason why NC State won this game. But again, this has to be better effort from start to finish for NC State, especially if you're not going to be able to win the rebounding battles. Like, you have to be more efficient on the offensive end, and they were not early. That allowed Pitt to be able to, through the first 10 minutes, have a 13-10 lead. But NC State, again, outscoring them in the second half of that, the first half 24-20 to get to a lead at the half. So you have to be able to do these things early on, especially on the road. You saw it against Clemson. You've seen it a couple times on the road, against Boston College. And people will say those are bad teams, but going on the road is never easy. Not in the ACC, not in the entire country, regardless of the situations you're walking to. So this is a game where NC State shows a ton of effort down the stretch. If they can get that throughout, if you can get, Darrion Williams being the consistent bus driver that you need him to be on an every game basis, this team looks completely different. But with Quadir Copeland having that second gear, that next year to be able to take over games, that helps NC State too. So it's not just say, hey, you've got to go win the game for us. We've got other guys that can step up, but we need all of those guys to be good on a consistent basis. And to me, NC State was good enough in several other areas. So yeah. Gary said, can Q get technical fouls for chirping at the crowd and flexing or doing the too small gesture? He seems to be getting away with it. He's making me nervous with that. Yeah, I mean, it really just depends. I mean, we saw Darrion Williams get hit with one earlier this season for just taunting a player as he's coming back down the court, and the same exact player did it later in the game to him against VCU. So it just really depends on the official that you have in the game. If they see it, what they think what they think of the situation. So that's really just kind of an up in the air type of call. And you'd rather not keep pushing it, but it's just who Q is. And when that same person gives you 20 points, 9 assists to 3 turnovers and gets you a steal too. So like that, again, I mean, the effort that you're getting from him, I don't know. I just, I think you have to live with that. So, yeah, I don't know. He said, do we as fans need to get Q to chirp at us so we can win a game at home? Well, last time that he chirped at NC State fans on the road, it didn't end up working out. So, he ended up having a big game in that one. But, yeah, and as Gary said, I'll take the good with the bad. I understand. Yeah, and that's kind of where NC State is. You need that energy from him, but you also need Darrion Williams to be the guy that you expect him to be on a consistent basis. And I think that's still something that NC State's waiting for. It's kind of a game in and game out basis to see where he ends up at. But if he can be what he was at Clemson, if he can be what he was on the previous 2 road games before coming home and putting up a dud against Georgia Tech last weekend, like if he can become that person on a consistent basis, and we're not saying like, it's just, it needs to be efficient. It needs to be, him being able to get the ball in others' hands, playmaking for others too. I think this team can really find another gear. And they found it late. Again, as Will Wade has said multiple times, I want to see it on an every game, every minute basis. But we'll see if this team can eventually get there. Either way, NC State comes away with an 81-72 win at Pittsburgh, moves to 4-0 on the road, come home on Tuesday against the Syracuse team They are flying back. Actually, was told they're on a charter with the Duke women's basketball team. So that's an interesting concept to think of Will Wade and Kira Lawson on the same plane together. But NC State heading home yet again, 4-0 now in ACC play. They'll come home and play Syracuse. I want to make sure I get this straight because I believe they will go right back out on the road afterwards and play. Let's see. Yeah, they'll go right back on the road. So Wake Forest, still in the state of North Carolina. Then you have to head to SMU. So this team is still going through a major stretch where it's a ton of road games. You're going to have to win a lot of road games. Now that you're 4-0, and, in ACC play is just huge. And then, look, man, you got Wake Forest, SMU on the road after the Syracuse game, and then you've got Virginia Tech at home. Then you have to go on the road to Louisville. So, again, 3 out of the next 5 continue to be on the road for NC State before you get into the February portion of the schedule. There's a reason why they got both UNC and Duke at home late in the season. There's a reason why they got a ton of home games late in the season, and you have to get through all these tough road games early on. The fact that you are now, 5-2 in ACC play, 4-0 on the road in ACC play, that's a massive, massive number for NC State to get started now. Come home, win some games at home. Maybe, win these next 2 before you go to SMU and have a chance to be 7-2 before you go back out on the real road and go halfway across the country to Dallas. So I thank everybody for jumping on. Hope everybody stays safe. I know this ice storm is about to come through tonight. Hopefully we'll all have power tomorrow. We'll be able to continue talking and doing all these throughout the week. But signing off after an NC State 81-72 win over Pittsburgh. I'm Cory Smith. I appreciate each and every single one of you for jumping on. We will talk to you guys again soon.